So we're going to talk about two different chapters today, chapter 7 and 8. So let's start with how to be a team player. Our learning objective is really to understand what makes a successful team and good leaders. I've got a quote for you. Okay, so we're going to be learning about team skills, and then we're also going to be learning about project management, which includes people. The biggest thing that you can remember that you want to come to the table with when you're working on a team is respect. All right? You want to think about what are some group norms that we should have as a team. All right? And they all come back to respecting each other. What you want to do is think about how you want to operate as a team. What do you think I mean by group norms? Totally at a loss? It's okay. I feel like it's a terminology that you wouldn't normally hear. So essentially, what I'm meaning is you got to think about how you're going to operate when you work together. All right? What is going to be acceptable? We live in some of us live in different countries. We come from different countries. We come from different states. There are different things that are acceptable, right? Different cultural differences. We have different genders, different races, different ethnicities, different sexual orientations, all of these different things, right? And society and the world around us shape us, right? These are environmental factors. And so there's implicit bias built into us. There's specific oppression that does exist. And when you're working on a team, you have to challenge this, okay? You can't let it get in the way of becoming successful. Now, I even think about these kinds of things when I teach a class, right? Think about the positive learning environment we want to create for you all. I think about how to take away these implicit biases when I'm doing things like grading your tests. You know, try to make it anonymous. I'll ask for feedback about the class, what worked, what didn't work. See if we can get some sort of administrative assistant or third party to type those up so I don't even see what your handwriting looks like, right? So if you're complaining about the class, something didn't go well for you, I don't want to take that out on you because I want to use that feedback to make things better. All right, so these are things we want to think about when we work on the team, and we want to assume best intentions and be respectful of each other, okay? If you're working on a team, you're not out to get each other, right? You have the same goals. And sometimes, things happen. People have bad days. They say something they don't mean. All these things happen, okay? So assumed best intentions. And you want to discuss as a group what you want to do about this. What do you want to do if something goes badly? What do you want to do if somebody feels upset or hurt? I have been in groups in the past who they say they give key words to things so that they don't have to say mean language. They say oops or ouch. So if you say something and you recognize, whoa, that didn't come out right, or I didn't mean that, you can just call oops on yourself, and everybody's assuming best intentions and they won't take it personally. Or if somebody said something and they don't even realize what they said or being hurtful, they can say oops, and that's a way to sort of call somebody out, to step back and talk about what happened, as opposed to getting upset or internalizing it or screaming angrily at the person. So these are things that you want to think about when you work with a team. We're all different. We all are going to have good days. We're all going to have bad days. So think about these things. A couple other things I want to point out is active listening is also very respectable. Okay, so don't just sit there and be quiet, but really try to listen. And try to listen not to just respond to them. So don't listen because you want to then point out everything that they said is wrong. Like really try to listen to them, to hear them. And there's an acronym that I really like. It's called WAIT. And it means, why am I talking? There's going to be people in your groups who are very extroverted and they like to speak and they're loud and boisterous, right? But there's other people who are going to be on your team who are introverted. They're more quiet. They need a little bit more time to gather their thoughts before they feel like they can say something. And so you have to think and wait. Why am I talking? Is it useful, or am I just talking to talk? Or maybe, why am I not talking? Maybe I have something to say. So these are things that you want to think about when you work in a team and to discuss as a group, and to be mindful of. What do we all think makes a successful team? Wait, communication. Let's see. I forgot your name, sorry. Peyton. Communication? Excellent, yes.
Accept different opinions.
Accept different opinions. Nice. That's Saad. Sorry. Anything else? Peyton?
Work towards a common goal.
Work towards a common goal. Musab.
Hold time meeting.
Hold
Time meeting.
Hold time meeting. Hold meetings. Yep. All right, so your book has a few things. All of the stuff that you said, definitely, all right? And there's probably more than what's on this list. Your book points out establishing, well, they call it a creative environment. I like to call it a positive environment. So it embodies more than just creativity, but it embodies this respect and does allow for everybody to be creative as well. They're going to want to share the workload and responsibility. This is going to be a tricky one. I don't think I've taught a class with projects yet where this hasn't come up, with at least one group not sharing the workload and responsibility. And I recently learned that if somebody really isn't doing anything in the group or is really, really unbalanced, this is actually a violation of the academic integrity policy, because that person who is not doing anything is claiming credit for work that they didn't do. All right, so you need to share the responsibility, and I would imagine there's going to be at least one group that this is an issue with. All right, so take this opportunity, this class, to try to figure out how you can deal with this as an issue and bring that person or people up to speed and make them feel included in the team and get them to do work, okay? We are going to be here as professors to help you and guide you through it, but I do want you to try to practice to deal with it on your own too, because we won't always be there. But I don't want you to wait so long that it's almost the end of the semester to bring up the issue with somebody outside of your team, okay? So anything that's going wrong within your team, try and use this experience as practice to deal with it on your own, but don't wait too long and ask for help, okay? It's perfectly okay, even outside of this class, if things are going wrong, to ask for help. There are some consultants out there who get paid a pretty penny to do some of these kinds of things too, okay? Hold regular meetings, very important. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Have a working knowledge of team roles. So people are going to be responsible for different things. They're going to have different roles that they might play. Have a method for making decisions. This is really important. This could be something like, okay, if 75% of us agree, that's what we're doing, or maybe we only need 50%, or maybe we need everybody. You have to decide how you want to make decisions as a group. And have a method for resolving conflicts or issues that come up, because they probably will. Okay, and if you have some sort of process or way to deal with them before an issue arises that everybody's bought into and decided upon, this is part of your group norms, this is something like an oops and an ouch. If you already have that before an issue arises, it's going to be that much easier to overcome that issue, okay? All right, so your team has to have different roles probably too, right? One that you would probably think of as the team leader. Now I want you to look at these roles and to know that you are not expected to be this role for the entire project. As a team, you can decide what you want to do, okay? So you can say, hey, we've got 3 members on our team and about 3 months to do this. Let's have somebody be a team leader for each of the 3 different months. Or you can rotate on a weekly basis. Facilitator, who knows what a facilitator is? Warren.
Someone who just keeps everything going, keeps on the right track.
Keeps on the right track. And when would this facilitator be doing things? How is that different from a team leader? Anyone else want to chime in? Omar.
To motivate the group, to support them, to get your things in track.
And when would we want to do this? When would you facilitate? Any ideas?
Probably when the group just wanna give up.
When they want to give up? All right, I'm thinking more, you're going to have team meetings, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's got to facilitate them. Somebody's got to run them. It does not have to be the team leader. It could be the team leader. But this is a very, very important and not really the easiest skill to learn because you're trying to keep everybody on task when they're all together all at once. It's not like you're going to be just sending out an email telling people to do stuff. Maybe that's more of a team leader role, but a facilitator is doing it while everybody's there in person, right? So they're going to run the meeting. They're going to help people come to a decision, follow that decision-making process that you agreed on. And it's not easy, right? Especially if people are not agreeing and things don't run smooth, and they may or may not. So it's a difficult thing. And I don't know about you, but I do not like taking notes myself. So I would definitely be in favor of having rotating positions for some of these because I would not want to be the permanent recorder for an entire month or for an entire semester. So feel free to take some of these roles, and you may be more than one role, but feel free to rotate through these so that you get some experience doing all of them. And another benefit of that experience is if you are the facilitator for a meeting, the next time when you're not facilitating, you might be a better participant in a meeting because you understand how difficult it really is to facilitate people, to get them to stop talking and be off topic and come back to the table. So it's a really good thing, and I highly encourage you to rotate through these different roles. All right, your team is going to develop as it goes along. And so we have different stages of development. So I want you to think about what team experiences you've had in the past as we move through these stages and how they went. So they're going to move, these stages are going to move hopefully fairly quickly for you so that you get a nice formed team. But just remember that at the beginning it's going to be a bit rocky. All right, you're going to be forming things. You're going to really be defining exactly what it is that you're going to do. You might not really have the best understanding. You may know the project, right? But what does that really entail? You're going to be meeting with community partners and discussing that, and you probably haven't been assigned roles yet. You probably don't know what your processes are, so you're forming your team at that point. And then you move to the storming process where you're really sorting all of that out, trying to figure out maybe based off of like innate personality, just the way people are, they go to this role or that role, and you're probably going to have people who want to do the same thing. So there might be some power struggles. So there's going to be definitely some stages of development for your team. So you're going to want to work through some of those so that you can get to more of a norming, and then the final stage in the second here where you have some sort of focus and commitment and you know what you're doing. You have clear roles, clear responsibilities. You've got your processes developed so you know how you're going to make a decision, those kinds of things, and you have good facilitation. And you'll get to essentially the final stage where you're really just rocking and rolling. So by the end of the semester, hopefully you have a lot of pride in what you're doing. You're unified, you're cohesive, you're getting done the work that you need to get to that end goal. and you're able to make decisions timely and without too much conflict and things like that. All right, the other thing this chapter talked about was the need for leaders, right? And what it means to be a leader. And I really think that everyone is a leader. So even if you're not designated a team leader, do you think you have to be a good listener? If you're not a team leader, there's another role that you could play, a facilitator. So good facilitating is key for a team leader, but also other people's roles. I would hope your whole team has a vision of what needs to be accomplished and that you're not just blindly following orders. And you should be taking responsibility for yourselves and also the team. And you should be planning for the project. Maybe it's a smaller scale. Maybe you're not thinking about the overall project if you're not team leader necessarily for that week, but you're thinking about your little piece of it. So I think we can all be team leaders or good leaders. And so that was part of your reading assignment, was to think about these particular skills that you need to be a good leader, and then also to be a successful team, and to think about which ones you want to focus on. Because there's a lot of skills, right? And you're probably not going to be able to get good at all of them right now. And so I'd really, really like you to think about one team skill and one leadership skill that you want to focus on to help make your team successful. So, working towards that, I'd like you to do a quick reflection and think about how many of you have not worked on a team before? Good. That's what I expected. All right, so think about a team that was highly effective, successful. It does not have to be school. It could be work-related, sports-related, some sort of club or activity-related. And identify, we got a lot of people in here, so I'm going to move it down to one specific characteristic that made that team successful, and go ahead and come on up and write that characteristic on the board. So I'll give you a minute here to think about it, and whenever you're ready, you can come on up and write a specific characteristic on the board. Next, let's think about those 6 successful features of a team and the 5 leadership skills. So those are the ones I listed on the slide specifically. So those are the ones from the book. Now, we also mentioned some things that you need to be a successful team. So don't think that those are wrong. All right, there's definitely more. But let's think about trying to map them to those successful features of a team and leadership skills. So think for a minute about 1 or 2 of these words and how you would map them, either to A or B here, and then if you can remember what those 6 features are or those leadership skills, even better. Okay, now, as I said before, and what I had you do as part of your reading quiz, is to think about which one you will stress, okay? So you do not have to stick with your reading quiz necessarily. But now that we've gone over some of this a little bit more, think about which successful team feature you want to stress and which skill of a good leader you want to stress. And try to think about this every time, probably on a weekly basis, and make this be your focus and try to get better at that particular skill. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to a minute here to remember what you wrote and or change your mind and pick something different so that you don't try to do everything this semester and learn everything. Pick. We've been pretty positive so far. We've been talking about all of the things that we want to do to be successful. However, I doubt everything's going to go smoothly 100% the whole way through. All right, there's going to be some setbacks, and if you were in Intro to Engineering, you probably remember we talked about engineers failing as when we talked about the design process. So the best thing to do, though, is to look at these setbacks not as failures, but as feedback so that you can improve and make things better. So you might want to watch out for some problem characters that the book talked about. Somebody like a lazy bull, so somebody who's basically a bully, but also is pretty lazy too, right? So there are different kinds of people, but they're different days, right? So you probably have been one of these people at some point. Probably not throughout necessarily an entire project per se, but people have good and bad days. So these kinds of people, they're going to crop up, right? And you may even have somebody who is something like a martyr who really stepped up, right? They're doing like lots of work. But that's not a good thing either, right? Like they're going to get burnt out. They're going to be overloaded. Maybe they can't pull through at the end of the semester, you know? So you got to watch out for all different kinds of problems that might crop up. And make sure that you can think about what you want to do when these things emerge, okay? So this comes back to the respect slide I was talking about. Coming up with group norms, how you're going to deal with issues that arise. So we didn't really talk about some of the stuff that you read about. We didn't talk about some of those preventative strategies or corrective strategies to deal with problems. But what I want to stress is that the book is your resource. The professors are a resource. This is your chance to practice these skills in a more low-stakes setting. But do ask for help if you need it, if you want it, and do so early, okay? The earlier you do it, the better it's going to be. Don't wait till the end. All right, and I put these slides up there for you to review later. And we should have time to do an ugly oranges exercise at the end. But just so we don't run out of time for covering project management, because you need some of that stuff next week, we're going to skip over to that and come back to the activity. So how to successfully manage your project to get to your end goal. And this is just a reminder. So you're going to want to understand why we need project management in the first place. Know what a project charter is so that you can make one yourselves. Learn a little bit about some pigs. And learn about some more project tools like a Gantt chart so that you can use that to successfully complete your project. All right, why do you think we need project management? How many of you have ever pulled an all-nighter? Some of you know? Excellent. Maybe this project management is something you already do then. All right, so we're going to talk about project management in sort of the context of this semester-long project, but it is actually very useful no matter what the project is, right? It could be something really small that takes a week to do. It could be something that's 3 weeks. It could be something semester-long. It could be something that's like years long. The longer it is, obviously, the more important it is. But even for short things, some of the stuff that we're learning today will be very useful for you to hopefully not pull some all-nighters. Also something to think about just in your own life, for especially this academic setting. You should really think about each semester as a big project with several sub-projects, right? All the different classes you're taking, and think about how you're going to manage to pass them all. You can use some of these tools to help you with your classes in general. So, if you do this, you're going to increase the likelihood that you're going to complete your project, that you're not going to run out of time, that you're going to have taken into account possibilities of different delays and scheduling issues or ordering issues. Most likely it's going to help you shorten your completion time because you've planned it out. You're not going to go down some road and then realize, well, that was useless to our overall goal. And it will allow you to effectively use your resources. So whether that be time, people, or even your budget. Planning is key. I've got another quote for you. Does this resonate with you? You think you're on track, and then all of a sudden, maybe this is why you pulled the all-nighter, you didn't realize there's all these small details that you didn't think about, right? You're like, oh, I have everything planned out, I got a whole week to do this, and then you're like, oh, but it means I have to do things that I didn't even think of. This is something that when I wrote my PhD thesis, my dissertation, there's all these bureaucratic things to think about. I thought I was going to be done like 3 months before I actually was. I've got committee members that I've got to have, all their schedules got to coincide. There's all of these specific requirements for how your title page looks and all these different things that are like itty-bitty details that, you know, I didn't really think about at the beginning when I started my project, you know. I just thought I was going to do some research and write a report, and that's, you know, that's the end of it. If I would have planned these details and thought about them and looked ahead, I would have realized pretty much everybody ends up in my situation, and you have to add 3 to 6 months onto the end of whenever you expected to finish your dissertation. That's just the way it is, and all of the administrative assistants and all of the professors, they all know this kind of a rule of thumb kind of thing. It's because students don't think about the details. So today we're going to talk about some tools that you can use to help you manage your project. And these are a list of tools that we'll talk about today. Project charters, PERT charts, Gantt charts, PIGs, calendars, and meetings. All right, these tools, if you use them, will help you. A project charter is essentially something that makes sure everybody's on the same page with your project. Okay, it talks about what is the project, what its goals are, what ends up being, what do you have to deliver, who do you have to deliver these things to, who is involved, who are your stakeholders. And this is a great place to put things about how your decision-making process is going to look, how your conflict resolution process is going to look. And doing this now at the beginning, before these things arise, before you have to make decisions, before conflicts arise, thinking about all of these things will help you in the long run. So what do you want to exactly include in here? A description of your project, what its actual objectives are, what are the things that you have to deliver, what are the outcomes, whether they're reports, your final product, those kinds of things. How long do you have? When do these things occur? Who are your community partners? Who are you going to be working with? Your community partners, they'll be interested in seeing this document too, to make sure that both of you have the same expectations. There's going to be different stakeholders for your projects. Your professors are one of them. You yourselves are one of them. And then maybe other people through the community. This is a place where you can define team membership and roles. You don't necessarily have to decide who they are, but you can say, all right, we're going to have a facilitator. It's going to rotate this often, who it is, and this is what they're expected to do as a facilitator. Okay, so you can put those things in this so you can refer back to them and hold people accountable and hold yourself accountable. And then you can also put in other important planning information, like maybe you have certain constraints, like the budget. So you can put that information so it's all in one spot and really grounds you and gets everybody on the same page. The next tool that we have is a PERT chart, and this stands for Program Evaluation and Review Technique. Well, what does that even mean, huh? All right, this class in particular does not have as many engineers in it, but this figure is a picture of the flow chart that engineers follow when they're trying to graduate from St. Ambrose. This is a PERT chart. All right, so what happens is there are certain classes you have to take. Certain classes have prerequisites, and so they have arrows between them. These are tasks that people have to do to get a degree in engineering from St. Ambrose. And any of them that have lines in between them, they're in series. One has to happen after the other. Any of them that don't have direct arrows, those are things that are in parallel. So they could be done at different times. So we have different paths that you follow, and some can be followed at the same time, and some have to be sequential. Now, who remembers what a critical path is? Somebody's got to remember. Warren? Yes. So the one is going to hold you up, right? It's the one that if you don't stay on top of things, it means your whole project is going to be delayed. So in the case of graduating, if you have to take this math class, to take this engineering class, and like that series that takes the longest, the minimum number of semesters that you have to be here to graduate, that's your critical path. And if by chance you can't take or don't take a class some semester, that's going to delay your graduation by a whole semester, right? Because you have to then wait and move everything back. So it's your critical path, meaning if you fall off schedule there, it has consequences for the end of your future project. So if you have a critical path, you want to think about, okay, what can we do to make sure that critical path doesn't ruin our chances for success? Maybe we should build in extra time, assume there's going to be a problem here and a problem here, and give us, a few extra days to deal with it, something like that. So this is a very important tool that you can use to figure out what you need to do, what things you can do at the same time versus what things have to be done in a specific order. And you can figure out where to allocate most of your resources and make sure that critical path doesn't hold you back. So how do you even make this? First, you just want to brainstorm all of the high-level, major things that you have to do, milestones. And I think the best thing to do is to use Post-its or something that's easily moved around. Because once you've listed them all, you're going to organize them into what things have to happen in series, one right after the other, and what things can happen at the same time. So if you got them on Post-its or some other thing that makes it easy to move things around, you can then start drawing arrows in between them and figure out what your PERT chart looks like. And that's high level. And then you think then about each of those specific tasks and what are like the subtasks of that. So think in more details about what all occurs in there. And that will really help you decide maybe how long that particular task is going to take, and maybe indicate to you which then is your critical path because it has way more tasks, like subtasks along the way. So you'll identify then that critical path, and you'll draw it all together. If we have time, we're going to make a PERT chart for this class, really mostly the high-level stuff. And you would do that by taking a look at all the things that you need to deliver and taking a look at your schedule, right, to see what stuff comes first before the other. So we have that nice column in our schedule, that Google sheet that you can look at. And for now, we're just going to look at an example. So here's an example of a PERT chart for hiring somebody for a job. You can see that there is a critical path here that has the most things that need to happen at once. But there are also some parallel tasks that can happen. So you can be working on format while you're writing what is the text itself of something, right? So certain things can happen at the same time, and certain things that have to happen one right after the other. Before I go on, what do you think is maybe missing from this kind of a tool? We know what tasks we have to do. We know which ones are the most important to get us to our end date, our end goal. What's missing? Omar?
For me, I don't know what does it mean for the red box or the yellow box.
Don't worry about color. Doesn't mean anything. All right. since I know what's coming next, what's really missing is scheduling, right? How long is that PERT chart going to take? There's no time on there. There's no dates, right? So the next step is to take your PERT chart and make it into a Gantt chart. And this allows you to put dates to things and really schedule things out. This is also a tool where you can assign people different tasks. Okay? So you take your PERT chart and you make a Gantt chart. You'll have a schedule, and there'll be certain dependencies because you have to do certain things in series, right? So you'll have arrows and things to show that. So what does a Gantt chart then look like? So it's going to be your project schedule, and there's going to be dependency arrows that you can take from your PERT chart, so you know which things follow each other. You have a time axis at the bottom, and vertically you got all of your different tasks. And then you're going to have a bar on there that indicates how long that task is going to take. So bigger bars, longer time. You can also include multiple colors on your bar to show, like, hey, we're 25% complete of this project, or this particular task, or we're 100% complete. And here's where you're going to want to assign who's doing what task so they can be held accountable. So you can do that as well on your Gantt chart. All right, so what does this look like? So here for that same hiring somebody is what a Gantt chart would look like. So we've got all of our tasks listed. It shows how long each of these tasks takes, and you can see that graphically with the different bars. You can also see the dependencies with the different arrows, and they've used a diamond shape to indicate which particular path is the critical path. So this is the longest path to get to the end. And what you're going to want to do is make one of these for your team and to look at it every week to see where you are. So, we're in week 2. We're supposed to be working on this. Are we here? Do we need to adjust things? How's our progress going? Who's assigned to those tasks? Do they know what they're doing? Do we have enough resources allocated to that? Do we need more people? Do we need money? That kind of a thing. And there's a lot of fancy software out there to help you do these things. So if you're working for a company, they might already have something in place. For you all, here's a link to a website that has a free Excel template. You can use it in Google Docs, so you can all share it with each other. I think it could be made better. So right now it doesn't have dependencies, and it doesn't show those arrows. You don't necessarily need to show the arrows per se, but there is a way that you can make it so that you can have some dependency built in. So if you'd like to do that, right now, duration is something that they calculate for you. So you're going to have to go in and change the formulas within those cells and make duration your input instead of a calculated value, and then make the end date a calculated value instead of an input. So flip those two. And once you do that, you can make any of your start dates a formula. So if one thing follows the other, then that start date is equal to the end date of the particular task that came before it. That way, if the end date or duration of something changes and you input that new duration, you can see your whole Gantt chart will automatically change for you. So you can use that link to help you make your Gantt chart. Okay, next we'll talk about pigs. Not exactly the pigs that you probably are thinking of. What I mean by pigs is it's just an acronym. It stands for progress, issues, and goals. So this is something that will be crucial to your meetings, that you're going to want to think about these 3 specific things every meeting. So, what progress have you made? The goals for 1 week are going to become the progress that you've made, and then you'll have new goals for the next week. So you want to think about, are we meeting our goals? How are we progressing? And look at your Gantt chart. Don't just make it. I think lots of people make the Gantt chart because we make you, and then you never look at it, all right? The Gantt chart will help you see as things move, especially if you update it, that there's a lot of details that are happening at the end. And so if you're slowing down in the middle, that's going to affect your end date. So be sure to look at your Gantt chart too, and not just think about from 1 week to the next, did we make any progress? You'll also want to think about what issues arise, whether they're personnel conflict issues or issues with the overall project themselves. They're probably going to be tied into the previous week's goals. So you're going to want to explain why you didn't meet those goals, think how you can correct them, see how you need to adjust what you're doing, whether that be resources or schedule, something like that. And then, most importantly, you need goals for the next week, and they should be actionable, okay? Measurable. Think SMART goals, okay? If you say something like, work on the design of the watch casing, well, I could think about it for a minute and be like, okay, yeah, I thought about that. Good. On to the next thing, right? Well, you haven't really done much. But if you make a very specific goal, create a print of each component of the watch casing, that's something deliverable, right? That's something that makes somebody accountable so that when they come into the next meeting, they have something to show the work that they've done. Okay, so that's very important that you make specific, actionable items and that they're assigned to people, and that will hopefully hold them accountable for you to progress through your project. Staying organized, crucial, right? Calendars, you can make your own Google Calendar. You can even set up alert reminders via email or popping things up if that's something that is useful for you. You're going to want to meet at least weekly and think about pigs and stay in contact. I don't know how many times I've had people, mostly on small projects, but sometimes on larger, big projects, don't even know everybody's name, okay? When you get assigned to your group, now you're going to have to put in the project charter too. Make sure you get everybody's name, first, last, what do they prefer to be called, maybe they have different preferred pronouns that they want to use. How are you going to get a hold of them? Make sure you have their email, but also their phone, right? What if you need to get a hold of them fast, right? Get all the different contact info. Maybe your group decides we want to use, I don't know, seems like Snapchat or Instagram wouldn't be the best, but maybe you do. Or maybe something like WhatsApp is something that you want to use to get in a hold of everybody. And meetings. Who thinks meetings are boring? I do. I picked my thesis advisor based on the fact that his meetings were very well run, I thought. Short, to the point. We didn't spend a long time in there. We just kind of checked in with one another, and it worked really well. Now, what's important for these meetings that you should really hold weekly? Oh, and special note, we as professors are meeting weekly because this whole class is like a project to us, right? So we are also meeting weekly to touch base, make sure everybody's on the same page. So even if that's all you do, even if all you do is check the schedule and make sure people are doing things, it's important to meet weekly. Timeliness is important. Respect your time and other people's time. Set a start time and an end time so people can block off, you know, the entire time that they need for there. If you're only going to meet 15 minutes, just set that ahead of time. But if you need an hour, make sure everybody knows it's going to be an hour long. Each meeting should have a facilitator and a note taker at the very least, and you want to assign those roles before you even get there. Because the facilitator most likely will probably make the agenda. They need to know that beforehand. And the note taker's got to come prepared, whether that's with a computer or paper or things like that. And you don't want to spend valuable meeting time figuring out who those people are or arguing over who's going to do it this time. You'll want an agenda, and you'll want to stick to it. So let's spend 10 minutes on this, and 10 minutes on that, and 10 minutes on that. That way, if you're going overtime, you can regroup or allocate more time to it because it's really important. Think about those things. And most importantly, leave that meeting with action items. There's no point for you to have met if when you leave that, you don't know what you're supposed to do next, okay? Each person should know what they are expected to do between that time and the next meeting. And the best thing to do to make sure everybody's on the same page is to send out a recap email that lists those tasks, has meeting minutes attached to it, maybe even has the agenda for the next meeting, those kinds of things. That way, everybody has one sort of culmination of like, yeah, that's what we talked about, and this is what we're doing moving forward. So yeah, I think meetings can be boring, but if you do it right and you're efficient, hopefully they won't be too bad. And if you have an agenda and you decide you're going to meet in 15 minutes, hey, that's awesome, right? Check in, everybody's doing good, and move on. All right, so when are you going to use all of these tools? The project charter, you're going to do that now, but you're probably going to maybe go back to it a couple times throughout the semester to update it as things progress. The PERT chart, you can do it now, but it's going to be fairly high level. So at each stage of the design or problem-solving process, you're going to want to go back and update it and start adding in those details, those crucial details, so that that last week or two, you don't have too many details to deal with. Then make sure that your Gantt chart gets updated weekly with your progress and keeps adding in more of those details. And you'll want to look at that weekly, see what you're supposed to do, what's coming ahead. Don't forget about the pigs when you meet. Calendar if you're using that, and definitely use meeting agendas and minutes. It'll really help you not have a boring meeting, or unfortunately they may make your meetings a little less fun because you won't get off topic, but you can save that fun then for after the meeting's over. All right, we're going to do an exercise called Ugly Oranges. Has anyone done it before? Okay, good. This is a role-playing exercise. So each of you is getting one of two roles, and I'm going to set the stage for you and then give you some time to read your more details about who you are, and we'll also tell you what you're going to be doing. Dr. Jones and Dr. Rowland, two biological research scientists representing rival pharmaceutical companies, each seek to acquire the entire crop of ugly oranges that was grown in the world this year. Dr. Jones is interested in the ugly oranges because of a recent outbreak of rudosind, a disease contracted by pregnant women that causes serious brain, eye, and ear damage to unborn children unless the pregnant mothers are inoculated early in their pregnancies. The ugly orange can be made into a synthetic chemical serum by Dr. Jones's company to prevent the spread of this disease.
I don't have any more.
Oh, there's two missing. Oh, some people still. Dr. Rowland is interested in the ugly oranges because of a recent leak of nerve gas from old chemical warfare bombs stored in bomb chambers on a small Pacific island. Thousands of people are going to die or suffer serious brain damage if this gas gets out of the bomb chambers and spreads to the coast. The ugly orange can be made into a synthetic chemical gas by Dr. Rowland's company to neutralize this nerve gas. Alex Cordoza, myself, a farmer in South America, owns all of the ugly oranges grown in the world this year. You are going to get an opportunity to speak with your rival who will be bidding for oranges just like you, and you will come up with a plan for what you want to do, and if you want to buy the oranges, what price are you going to offer, and to whom and how are the oranges going to be delivered. So that's going to be your goal. That's what you need to decide, and pair up. So read through then if you're Dr. Jones or Dr. Rowland, and then pair up with your rival and see what happens. So you're going to have an opportunity once you're done reading to speak with your rival. Maybe you can come up with a joint proposal. Otherwise, you can come up to me and tell me what you plan to do, how much you plan to give me for the oranges, who I'm going to give them to, how they'll be delivered. But you have a chance to speak with your rival first.
Okay, so we both came up with, since we both need, we're buying 3,000. We both decided to buy 1,500. That way, both of our companies could get oranges to make the vapor for the gas leak. And then we both decided to bid this much. So
All right.
1,500.
So Joy's proposal, you're just gonna split everything?
Yeah.
So you won't save everybody, but you'll save a lot.
Yep.
All right, cool. Nice job. All right, we've got 1 minute left. And I would like Omar and Daniel to share their solution and what we just discussed about how you came to this particular solution.
Yeah, so I'm gonna buy the oranges for $200,000, and I just want the juice, and he want the skin. So when I buy the oranges, I will sell the skin to him for $100,000. So we come up with that solution. It's gonna, because I don't need the skin and he needs it.
And why did you share so much information?
Just because we want different things, and we shared.
So they shared stuff, right? So they're rivals, but yet they shared things. So they came into this discussion with an open mind and were willing to put everything on the table. Well, not everything. They didn't share everything, but they were willing to throw things on the table, and they finally were able to share enough information that they came up with a good solution, okay? So make sure that when something happens within your team or some conflict arises, assume best intentions. Come into it with an open mind and make sure you put things out on the table, okay? And hopefully you can come up with a agreeable solution. And I don't know, originally somebody was going to pay me just $1. I don't know why you didn't decide to just pay me $1, because I would take the highest bidder, right? All right, we'll see you on Tuesday.